Hello and welcome to another session of Music Matters with Ev. And it gives me great pleasure to have the opportunity to interview someone who, as far as I'm concerned, is an award-winning musician and someone I am indebted to because he gave me the opportunity to further my experience as a singing tutor. Welcome, John Douglas.
Hi, nice to see you. Thank you for that introduction.
How are you?
Very well. Yes, very good. Thank you very much. Yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
good. Well, it's true. I seriously believe that because after hearing the two tracks that you sent to me, I was just blown away. And we are going to talk a little bit more about that as the interview progresses. But to start things off, please tell us, John, when did it start for you? When did you realize that music was going to be a big part of your life?
Well, I'm probably going to give away my age a bit here, but I think it was the first time I heard T-Rex on the radio. Um, I was still at primary school, but I remember listening. I think it was Hot Love, and just heard it on the radio. And it's hard to describe because I was too young for it to be what you would call a sensual experience. But there was something about it that kind of whoa, what is this? It makes me feel good type of thing. So that was probably the first time I recall actually having some sort of reaction to something and thinking I'd like to be part of it without understanding what that meant, I guess, at that age.
Wow. So how did you then proceed? Did you start to learn musical instruments?
Yeah, and again, um, showing my age a bit, but the back in those days there wasn't really there wasn't a lot of formal music teaching, and it was very much classically orientated. So it was really quite hard. Um, my parents gave me a sort of acoustic guitar when I was quite small, um, and then I sort of there was difficult to get lessons, and I think I had some because I had piano lessons and guitar lessons. My parents were sort of, they're sort of people that would encourage you but wouldn't make you do it. So it was up to you to follow it. And the piano was very much theory based, which 20 years later, if you've got the theory, it's fantastic. But when you're young, playing scales doesn't really excite you as much as playing T-Rex songs. And likewise, the guitar lessons was Spanish guitar, which I appreciate now, but at the time when you're young, um, I guess it's the whole thing about going from the known to the unknown. And I started, in those days you were taught the unknown. And then my brother, I think it was my brother or someone just sort of showed me a couple of, like the 3 chord trick, Johnny be good, that sort of stuff. And I
Mhm.
thought, oh, 3 chords, that's all you need. So I stopped learning and just stuck to those 3 chords.
Okay, that's very interesting. And also, we need to talk about the songwriting element as well. When did that start for you?
Well, I think that probably started around the same time because one of the big inspirations is to try and play other songs and to play, learn tunes. And I
Mm,
was given a Beatles chord book, and again the Beatles songs, are great for sort of working out how songs, simple but effective chords can work. And it's also good because there's always that difficult shape. Like if you play the guitar, the sort of 3 chord trick in C, but F is quite a difficult one to
yeah.
learn straight away. So um, when you've got songs that you want to play, that's quite good. But I always found that I struggled to play play them as well as the originals, and I always kind of got distracted, and I'd start learning a song and then go off on my own. So who can say why? But I was just always naturally gravitated towards just if you like improvising and then writing my own tune rather than actually learning other people's. And I guess if you play your own songs, no one can tell you're not playing them right. So that was another excuse.
Very good. So, what about the band situation? Did you go down the road of playing in a band, forming a band?
Yeah, I think at school, I played well. I had a sort of a next door neighbour, and he had a good, a broken keyboard or something. So we sort of improvised a bit, and we were still very young then, but we used to record songs on a reel to reel cassette, and then
Wow.
um, in those days, people would have you'd have a landline telephones, but you could have an extension upstairs and down. So we would record our songs and then if his mum was on the phone, we'd pick the receiver up upstairs and pretend it was the radio and say, now on the radio, it's the latest hit from whatever our band was called, and silly things like that. But I mean, the technology around today is fantastic, but when you haven't got the same technology, you need to be a little more imaginative, I suppose. So we used to sort of do that. But and again, very few people had when I was at school, very few people had drum kits or guitars or so on. It was quite rare, and I couldn't afford it, to tell the truth. And again, my parents were supportive, but if I wanted an electric guitar, they it was kind of like, say, get a job, save up and buy one. So it took me quite a while before I could afford to have a sort of electric guitars and have enough equipment to join a band, probably sort of 16, 17, 18. So I used to sort of just write songs at home, really. And then I started, I love playing live, but I've always loved recording. So I wrote some songs, and I found out about a studio in Bristol called Right Track, run by a guy called Liam Henschel.
Mm-hmm.
And I sort of went along with these sort of really rough songs and quite naive, but he helped me record them, and it was the first time I'd ever recorded songs, and like the thrill of writing a song, imagine it in your head, and then just hearing it on on cassette. I recorded it on reel to reel, then got it a cassette, and I remember just listening to it literally all night, didn't go to bed, just 2 songs just on repeat all night. And that was the thrill. Funny enough, just as an aside, Liam, he changed. Well, his name was William anyway, but he changed his name to William and went off to London and had hits with a group called London Beat. I don't know if you remember them.
Yes, London
Yeah.
Beat. Yeah. Wow.
He's now based in California and describes himself as an idealist. But he was it's a really big help for me at the start.
Wow. So talking about cassette, do you feel that we've come full circle? Because maybe I'm slow to it, but people are selling albums on cassette again.
I think in a sense, yes, although I think the numbers are very small. So it's probably still a bit of a novelty. But fun enough, I've got it here. I still record all my ideas onto cassette. There we are.
Wow.
That's the
That is just bringing back so many memories, John. Thank you.
The funny thing is, I didn't realize how reliant I was on that cassette player, because clearly, iPhones, everything, you could record song ideas on anything, but I didn't realize emotionally, I guess I was just connected to it, and I couldn't get into sort of the songwriting zone the same way when it broke. So I went online, and this, again, I'll show you again, it cost about £20 when it was brand new, and yet I had to buy one from America for about £70. just
incredible.
Just have the same emotional impact. But yeah, I didn't realize how in love with that cassette player I was. But I like writing songs on it, and again, going back, because I did have a sort of a bit of a studio setup at home, but I find if you're writing songs, I don't like to be distracted. I kind of hear it in my head. So what I record on the cassette sounds terrible, but in my head it sounds fine. Whereas if you start demoing songs as you write them, I find like you get distracted by the equipment and the trying to program drums or something. So I very much just stick to sort of getting the feel of the song down in the idea, and then using other musicians later. But
thank you for that, because that is another element or another aspect of getting the fresh idea. And I think that's very good advice that you just gave. Rather than trying to produce it as you're developing it, just let it come out as raw and organically as possible, and then do the producing after, if any.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, of course. And I mean, they say sort of 5% inspiration, 95% perspiration. But when you're going through that inspirational when you're just first getting the gem of an idea with a song, you really you want to just, you don't want to start editing at that stage. You just let it, I very much work by chucking it all down and then editing it later, and not thinking too much about it. So that's why, it's just a simple cassette. And to be honest, I always use the cassette player to record ideas, but if it's a good idea, I remember it anyway. But it's just, again, psychologically, because if you think, oh, that's the best song I've ever written, and you can't remember it, it probably isn't.
Yeah. So, John, tell us about your journey then from the beginnings. Where did it take you? And then how did you end up? I met you when you were heading up a training facility in Bristol.
That's right. Okay, well, it's in a rush store. Like I said, I started writing and recording songs when I 16, 17, 18, and I did recording, as I said, with Liam in Right Track Studio. So I started getting demos and sending them off and that sort of thing. Um, I got a I left school and I got a job because I didn't have I couldn't afford a PA and anything like that. And again, I don't want to make out that I brought up in great poverty, but my parents, particularly my father, were very much, you want to do it, do it. But
Mm.
so I mean, I wouldn't. I remember, we used to catch the bus to gigs and put your guitar and an amp on, and take it on the bus. If I'd asked my dad to give me a lift somewhere, he would have laughed at me. So you kind of you have to really want it, I suppose. So I got a job to buy, enough equipment, PA, etc. But then I decided I didn't really like working in an insurance company. Um, so I did that for a year. Then again, there weren't really music courses, and I wanted to be
Mm.
able to write music full time. So I went to university to study social anthropology, which is the best way I could think of allowing myself lots of spare time. Um, so I did that, and I got at the end of that period, I got a development deal with Atlantic Records. Um,
Wow.
they just set up an office in the UK. They're part of the Warner Brothers group, which Elektra was part of, and Elektra just done the same and discovered Mick Hucknall and Simply Red. So Atlantic did the same.
Mm.
But for me, it was a development deal, but they didn't really. They sent. I got signed by a UK NR person, and then I was passed on to a guy from California. And again, when you get signed and then passed on to someone else, it's never the same because the person who first
Discovered you.
signed you
Mm.
doesn't have the same enthusiasm as the person you're passed on to.
Mm.
And I wasn't Mick Hucknall or Simply Red, and I wasn't ready. The raw talent was there, but it needed developing. But they didn't really have the time to do that. So that was a good experience, but I didn't take off full time. And then I wanted to be part of the music industry, so I got jobs in record shops and stuff like that when
Mhm.
record shops used to exist, because it's a good way of meeting reps and understanding and learning about music. And I think the best songwriters always have the best music collections. So the more
Mm. Mm.
songwriting is just like a big melting pot of ideas. So the more that
Mm.
goes in there, the more likely interesting ideas will come out. So
Mm.
um, that was really good. And then I got other contacts, and no, I played in covers bands, as you know, because it's a good way to earn money as you're going along. And you get I've probably made more money playing in wedding bands than I ever have selling albums. But that's, I think I saw your interview with Sean Snooky saying about that sort of varied career that you need to have. So I did
Mm.
that, and then we got another record deal with band called I had a band called Kid Sinister, and we were quite big in 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 the time, and sort of tipped to be the next. And funny enough, we're still quite popular in places like Japan and Germany, which is funny. Um, it- who can say why? But a saint in his hometown and all that. Um, and then another band called Whooshcat, and we were signed to EMI through Kitchenware, who they managed Prefab Sprout and people like that.
Ooh, ooh.
And I mean, we did pretty well, but in a sense, it's as far as you can go without getting to the next level.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, we did that for a few years, and then I there comes a point when you kind of think, actually, if you've got children and all that sort of stuff, and and then things like mortgages come along, so you think I might need to do something else as well. So I moved into education as well,
Mhm.
and that's I did a training course called Music Facilitator, which was a way of sort of popular musicians going into schools,
Mhm.
and then through that started working with Access to Music in Bristol, which again I think that's where we first met,
Mm.
which was great. And I really enjoyed working with young musicians and supporting people. So that's I think that was up to the point you asked me. So that's the
Yeah,
whistle stop tour.
that's excellent. And okay, so after Access to Music, I know that you left there
Hmm.
And were you still active in music after that?
Yeah, still. So I now work for a training company, but it's non-music related. It's actually a veterinary training company, and I don't know. Don't ask me how I get away with that, but somehow we do. Although you'll be glad to know I don't actually do any teaching. But no, it's great. I really enjoy it. But in many ways, the nice thing now is that I do write and record, but purely for its own sake, because that's what you do.
Yeah.
And I suppose, in a sense, when you're young and you're starting off, there's lots of things that motivate you, including sort of international success, fame, etc., etc. But ultimately, all I've ever wanted to do is write songs and record them.
Mm.
Um, and now I'm in the position I can do that because I've got a decent job, fortunate enough to have that.
Mm.
And I'm, if you like, we're my own record company now, so I write and record albums with Steve Hogg and other people, and I've only got myself to please. So obviously, if we sell millions of copies, I'd be quite happy with that. And when you write music, you want people to like it. But
Mm.
it's a really great position to be in, where literally I only have myself to justify what I'm doing. And it's great. So like the story about the cliche, when you play someone's your music, they say it's quite good, but don't give up the day job. I'm in the reverse now. It's the day job that pays for the music. um,
Excellent.
so yeah, and we've got a record label, Sons of Art, where Steve and I have all our old music from all the previous bands, and we sort of reissue it and through our own label, sometimes with
Mm.
Bristol Archive Records.
Mm.
And we've got an album we released a couple of years ago, and we've got another one we're just finishing off recording at Jim Barr's studio, J&J. So yeah, I'm really lucky, but it's this as a musician and songwriter, it's what you do. So
Mm.
I'm probably always will.
Excellent. So that means then 2020 didn't have that much of an impact on your activity.
Not not massively from a musical point of view, and to be fair, very very fortunate, because that I don't rely on music as my living anymore, and certainly have lots of sympathy for people who did, and I'm very grateful for that. So from an income point of view, no, I was lucky and still am. I suppose the only inconvenience was that from a practicality point of view, we had to put a hold on, you know, recording and so on. So it took a bit slower to get back in the studio and all that sort of thing. And recording studios are still open under the right circumstances, but that was the main challenge really. But it was the same for everybody in most things, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But, um, but no, and as I say, I think I'm really lucky. Although I have to say, I'm really pleasantly surprised, and I guess it's the human spirit that most of the musicians I know have all managed to sort of survive the period one way or another.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
online teaching, etc. But so no, it hasn't had a big impact on me. And again, the other question about the impact on the songs, I have written some songs during that period, so whether they're influenced by it, I don't know. But it's been a funny old time.
Excellent. And what do you see of the future moving on?
For me, or for music in general?
Let's take yourself first and then music in general.
Okay, well, probably more of the same. I mean, as I say, short term, we've actually finished recording this album. We're going to the name of September Song now, so we've started mixing. So finish mixing in the next couple of months, and then get it down to Optimum Studios to master it, and then we'll release it. Still release it on probably compact disc, maybe vinyl, because although I know most people don't listen through streaming, to me I still like that physical product. So
Mm. Mm.
it's a way of sort of ending it. I guess it's what I grew up with, but I like the availability of streaming and Spotify, etc. But it doesn't feel the complete thing until you've actually got the physical product.
Mm.
So that's what we'll do. Hopefully we'll do a few gigs. It does depend, because the lineup, we use a studio lineup, and there's lots of great names from the Bristol scene that play on the album, and they're all great in terms of that they all do it at very good rates for me, which I'm very grateful for. But obviously, to get a sort of 10-piece band, we've only done a few gigs because a 10-piece band is a bit of a logistical challenge. Even just finding a day that everyone's free can take a while. So that's what we do, and I continue to write songs because I think for me, writing songs is a bit like, you know, when they say that when you dream at night, it's how your brain sorts everything out. And if you didn't dream, you sort of go insane. I think songwriting is, for me, really, it's just how you sort everything out to stay sane, you know. So from that point of view, I should carry on writing and recording. From the music industry as a whole, I don't know if I've got any more insight than anyone else has, really. Clearly it's going to come back in some way, but clearly it's going to be quite a challenge in the short term getting everything going. I guess, I mean, what's interesting in some ways, you know, the way to get to market is a lot easier because you can just go online and do things. But the music industry has turned on its tail. So from when I was, you know, starting out, the record companies subsidized the touring in order to sell albums, whereas now, to make money from the music industry, it's all about giving away your music almost for free, but then subsidizing it, paying for it by touring and live events. So I guess it's really important that comes through, and I hope there's not too many venues that have you know, disappeared, or but I'm sure it will survive. And I've got a friend of mine, I don't know if you know Dave Brayley, who's, you know, I know he's getting a new venue together, and you know, I'm sure it'll survive, but I guess it's going to be quite tough until people are allowed back into venues again.
And what advice would you give to anyone who's thinking of becoming active musically?
Well, I mean, in a sense, it's probably an obvious one to say, but do it because you love it and as a vocation. Don't do it because you think it's going to be loads of money and glamorous. For a few people, I'm sure it has been, but as you probably know, that's not the majority. And I, again, when I used to talk to potential students at Access to Music, I used to say, you know, if you follow your heart and what you want to do, you might have disappointments, but you won't have regrets. And I've only ever regretted things really that I've not done. You know, I've been embarrassed by things I have done, but never really regretted them because you know, that's the most important thing. So, you know, follow your heart. And again, it's a cliche, but you only live once. So, you know, there's no point to, you know, reaching the end of your time thinking, I wish I hadn't been an accountant. I wish I'd tried music. So just do it really. But, you know, do it because you love it and you want to make a living, if you can, out of doing something you love, rather than, you know, fame, fortune, etc.
Excellent answer. Thank you very much. Okay, and now the final question, which I want you to just give us your considerations on that.
Okay.
If the year 2020 was a human being, what would you say to him or her?
Oh, I think it's like that when your parents tell you off, you know, rather than telling you off, if they sit you down and just say they're very disappointed in you. So I just say, 2020, I'm very disappointed in you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So just to recap, John, you've got sonsofart.com. Is that the label website?
Thank you. Yes, website label. So all it's primarily all the musical projects. I've always worked with a singer called Steve Hogg, and all the different bands we've been in over the years, and the current one, September Song. So yeah, all the information and photographs of me with hair and a mullet, everything you could possibly hope for there. And we'll have details of the new album on there when it's released, and the last album. So yeah, that's pretty much the place to go.
Oh, thank you ever so much. And we will be keeping an eye on September Song and sonsofart.com. And John Douglas, thank you ever so much for giving us this interview, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks.